So tell me, have you ever felt like you've been the perfect candidate for a job, nailed every single interview question, but still didn't get the job offer? I know I have. And it took me years to understand why. But before getting into it, let's go back a little bit. So when I was at university, at the age of 18, I thought I had it all figured out. The plan was simple: study hard, get a degree, land a job, and climb the corporate ladder. Simple, right? Well, little did I know that the minute I actually got out of university and started applying for jobs, the perfect job wasn't just out there waiting for me. I remember applying to countless of applications, networking like crazy, and still getting radio silence. Talk about being frustrated. At one point, I was so frustrated that I started questioning everything. I was asking myself questions like, was my degree enough? Was I enough? I just couldn't figure out where I had gone wrong.
I had a similar situation as well. When I was 19, I thought my future was set. I was studying engineering in Brazil. Sounded like a solid plan. But then 2 years in, I was sitting in a lecture hall, just like you guys are now, staring at an equation that made no sense to me, and realizing I did not care. And that terrified me. What was I supposed to do? Stick with it and finish my degree, or change and do something completely different? Even though everyone around me was telling me to just stick with it, I decided to take a leap. So I moved across the world to a different country with a different culture and different language and started over doing business instead. And that was the hardest but the best decision I could have done for myself, not because of the degree, but because of the experiences that I lived and the people that I met, like Rox.
So Joana and I actually met in the most random way. We met in Mandarin class. And I remember thinking, this could be useful, maybe even fun. But what we didn't expect was that a few years later, we'd be here standing on this stage together. Talk about a friendship glow up, am I right? Well, the real friendship glow up actually happened during our time in China. So as part of our degree, we got to do an exchange program where we lived in Beijing for about 6 months. And safe to say that this was really pushed us outside of our comfort zone, and it was probably one of the hardest things we had done to date. Or so we thought. Because the real challenge actually happened when we came back to London, and guess what? Started applying for jobs. Because we realized that it's actually not that easy of a thing to do. What we actually realized is that it's not because you know what to do in a job that you necessarily know how to get the job. So things like degrees, skills, experiences, all of this means nothing if you don't know how to communicate your value. And so that's why we started TechTalk, to help bridge that gap. And we're proud to say that in the last 2 years, we've helped over 200 people land job offers. And not by changing who they are, or even upskilling them, but by teaching them how they can position themselves in this market in order to get hired. And the real thing is, there's a lot in terms that we don't really learn when you get into this job market. So we don't necessarily know how to sell ourselves. And this is where the real problem is.
And this is something that I wish someone had told me earlier on in my career. 8 years ago, I was fresh out of university and into the job market for the first time. And let me tell you, it was a roller coaster. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So like many graduates, I applied for everything. I applied for thousands of jobs, and guess what happened? I got thousands of rejections. And back then, I couldn't really understand why. I had a good degree, I went to a good university, I even spoke 5 languages. So why were companies not interested? But then one day, I got a call back for an interview that I thought I had done really well. And then about 24 hours later, the recruiter reached out to me. And he said, unfortunately, we're not going to be moving you through to the next stage. And for the first time, I decided to ask for feedback and ask why. And this is what the recruiter told me. Even though you had all of the right qualifications, all of the right skills, and I know you would be a good fit for the role because I spoke to you before, you didn't manage to position yourself in a way that you convinced the hiring manager you would be a good addition to their team. And I was shocked. How can you have the right skills, have the qualifications, they tell you you're the right fit for the role, and still not get the job based on how you're positioning yourself?
And I remember this day so well, when Joana came to me and told me about this recruiter's feedback. And it kind of had me thinking. So at university, we learned all about what it takes in order to build a great business. So that means we learned about economics, operations, even all of the different market entry strategies you need to learn in order to build and grow internationally. But the one thing that they didn't teach us Actually, one class that we also had was very specifically on how to be a great hiring manager. So we joined all these lectures on how to interview candidates, how to ask great questions. But the one thing that we never learned was how to be the other person in the room, which is the candidate. We never learned how to sell ourselves, and we never learned how to frame our experiences and skills in a way that highlights our potential.
And it wasn't until years later, when I became a hiring manager myself, that I finally understood what the recruiter was talking about. I had to hire someone for my team for the first time, so I wrote out a job description. In the job description, I was very specific about what I was looking for. I needed someone with a proactive mindset and that could work independently. And I found a great candidate. On paper, at least. She had the right skills, the right qualifications, even had previous internship experience. But then when I jumped on an interview with her and I asked her to tell me about a time where she showed initiative, she went on about talking about a project that she led, but where her manager was telling her what to do every step of the way. So even though she was the perfect fit on paper, she didn't manage to translate that in the right way where I saw she would be a good fit for my team and my role. And it's fair to say she didn't get the job. But the reason why I wanted to tell you this story is for you to understand how we've been approaching job applications all wrong. We think that just because we have these skills, we go to the best universities, we're going to get the job. But in this job market, this is not enough anymore.
And it's true, because the job market has changed a lot in the last couple of years. What companies have focused in terms of their shift is completely different. So now companies are a lot more focused on profitability over growth. And so what does this mean? It means that we've been seeing more layoffs, less job security, and a lot more of a crowded job market. On top of that, let's add global talent into the mix. Because let's face it, you and I are no longer just competing with people in our local area. We're competing with people based in London, yes, within the borders of the United Kingdom, but also across all continents who each are bringing unique skills and perspectives to the team. And you know what? Let's add even more complexity, because as if there was not enough already. We're going to talk about the advancement of global technology and how the advancement of global technology has completely shifted what it means to be a valuable employee. Because up until now, information was really your value add, right? But now, when it comes to information, we've got the internet, we've got tools like ChatGPT and all these other AI tools, which means that information and knowledge is not really as much a competitive advantage. But what is a competitive advantage is how you can use all of this information in order to add value to your teams. And this is what employers care about.
And that's why it's more important than ever to know how to sell yourself in this market. Here's something that you might not know, but the average person will change careers 5 to 7 times throughout their lifetime. Sounds crazy, right? I already changed careers 3 times, from engineering to customer support to marketing. And all of the times that I made a transition in my career, I had to change my story and the way that I was positioning myself. Something that is even crazier is that 85% of jobs you apply for in 10 years don't even exist yet. This means you're not just tailoring to what's out there right now, you're also positioning yourself to jobs and careers that don't even exist yet. And this is crazy.
Okay, so we get it. You need to learn how to sell yourself in today's job market and in the future. But here's the thing that most people get wrong. So when people think, okay, I need to go and sell myself, they'll come out here to these interviews, they'll talk about their stories, they'll talk about all of the accomplishments that they have. But that's not exactly the case. So the real value in knowing how to sell yourself is thinking about your audience. So in this way, your future employer, and framing your stories and experiences in a way that your audience will see what kind of value you can bring. So let's give an example. Let's say that you're going on a first date. On that first date, are you going to spend the entire time talking about your entire life story, its history, all the accomplishments that you've had, but then never take the time to actually think about what the person on the other side of the table truly cares about, like what their interests are? I mean, no, you wouldn't, because that would be quite a self-centered date, and I personally wouldn't want to be on that one. But yes, this is exactly what employers or job seekers are doing when they're going up to interviews. They come, they bring their resumes, they talk about all their life achievements, and they expect that these are the things that should land them the job. But yet they don't take a single second to even think about what the hiring manager truly cares about and how they can talk about all of these things, showing how they can add value to their teams.
So let's put this into context. I want you to imagine you have 2 candidates applying for the same marketing position at a startup. They're fresh out of university, so they don't have a lot of experience yet. Candidate 1 says, I recently graduated with a degree in marketing, and I've worked on a few group projects where I manage social media campaigns. Candidate 2 says, during my final year at university, I noticed our campus club weren't using TikTok to promote their events. I didn't know much about the platform, but I took it upon myself to learn. I created a content plan, ran our TikTok account, and in just a few months, we saw a 25% increase in event attendance and a lot more engagement from students. And now I ask you, which candidate would you hire?
I mean, I hope you're thinking candidate 2, because if you're not, we probably need to have a talk after this. But when you look at both candidates, they essentially have the same educational background, right? The same experiences. But what candidate 2 was able to do was that they were able to provide a lot more value upfront. So they were very specific in terms of what initiatives they took, how they went about problem solving, and even what specific tools they use in order to help solve those problems. Not only were they very coherent in terms of the way that they were talking about their experiences, but they were also able to talk about the very specific business impact that they brought, right? So a 25% increase in event attendance. Not only were they able to talk about how they identified the business gaps, but they also talked about the very specific actionable steps they took in order to fill those gaps.
And that's why it's not just important to know how to sell yourself, but also tailor your story to your audience and to the company that you're interviewing for. But now you might be asking, how do I create a compelling story?
So step 1, it's all about understanding the company and the role inside out. So make sure you research the company, its values, its missions, what are its challenges? You want to understand what kind of problems are they solving? Who are their competitors? And what skills can you add to the table that will help them beat their competitors?
Step 2, audit your experiences. We often overlook the experiences that we already have, but everything you've done, from a side project to internships, volunteering work, even moving to another country, that counts. It's just about how you frame it. For example, you manage a group project at university. That shows communication, collaboration, leadership. You move to another country. That shows adaptability.
And step 3, now it's all about connecting the dots. And again, you want to make it very specific to your audiences. Because whether you're speaking to a hiring manager, recruiter, they're going to ask different questions, which means they're going to be expecting different answers. Or even better, think about the specific company that you're interviewing for. For example, the size or the specific industry that they're in. Because if you're interviewing for a startup, they're going to be looking for adaptability. So you need to be talking about times where you've worn multiple hats or how you've been able to thrive in chaos. For example, whereas a big tech company, they're going to be looking for specialized skill sets. And also they're going to be looking for processes. So that means in your experiences, you need to talk about times where you've used those specific skills, driven processes, and helped scale teams. But here's the problem. Even when most people are doing all of these 3 steps, they'll never practice their interview answers out loud. And that's a problem. Because if you don't have confidence when you come to these interviews, then I'm sorry to break it to you, but you're just not ready.
In the end, what really sets you apart is not the things that you've done, but how you present it. You have the value to shape how other people see your value and your potential. But again, it's not about trying to fit into a box. It's about showing yourself as a candidate that can help drive growth, solve problems, and adapt to challenges.
So if there's one thing that I want you to leave with here today, is that your story is your strongest asset. So go for it. I want you to own it, refine it, and share it with confidence. Because the minute that your story, you can tell it with confidence, the rest falls into place.